Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to the Magical Experiments podcast. This week, I'm talking about a question that I was asked recently, which is when do you take a rest from active magical work? When do you take a break? I think it's a great question to ask. It doesn't surprise me that this question comes up around this time of the year, because this is around the time of the year that we're really supposed to be doing a bit of resting. And in modern culture, we've kind of been forced with go, 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 go. We're always like going all the time. But there's a time and a place for rest. And really, I don't even think that it has to be a time of the year. I think that winter, if you're in the northern hemisphere, which is, if you're in the southern, it's summer, but if you're in the northern hemisphere, winter is happening right now, is a natural time of the year, because it's a time of the year where it's cold out, and what do? We start to stay in more. We have our feasts, we have our moments of celebration and all that, but what we're doing is we are stocking up to rest our bodies, to get through the lean times. Now, the benefit of I guess living in this modern society is that we're not really dealing with lean times unless something happens to break down the supply chain. Like obviously when COVID happened, that was a little bit different. But I think it's telling that in a very real sense, we often don't appreciate the full extent to which we need to take a break from activities. This year, I'm not going to be doing peak season. Done peak season, at least in the call center, is there are periods of time in the call center when you work at a call center where it's busier. For me, with the two of the jobs that I worked at, the peak season was always January, because it was when taxes and finances and things need to get done. That was hard for me, because my tendency is to want to rest, not be super active, not work 9 to 10 hour days, 5 to 6 days a week, because people are busy trying to get their finances done. But of course, that's when the fiscal year typically ends, the end of the calendar year. And even if you have a fiscal year at a different point in time, you still are dealing with that reality. I mention that because there's going to be moments in your life where maybe you aren't able to rest the way when you want to. Finding that lull, finding that time is still important. What I would do during peak season is I would actually make it a point to go to bed earlier and sleep a bit more, and I didn't work on other projects too much. I just did my job, and then I spent my time just relaxing and taking care of myself, because I knew that's what I needed. I'm not in peak season anymore, which is wonderful, and I'm never going back to a workplace where I have to do peak season, because I'm done with that. It's not something I ever want to do again. I think it's really important that we in general recognize that we are animals. Humans have this tendency to think that we're not animals, but we are animals. And you look at any other animal, and those animals attune to the seasons and take care of themselves in a way that we don't. We don't, because we've got this thing called a thinking mind that tells us that we have to do all these activities, that we have to help our corporate overseers make money and do all the other stuff, and I get it. So when do you take a break from magical work? Well, part of that's seasonal. Part of it is also really paying attention to the work that you're doing for yourself. If I'm doing magical work, one of the things that I do is I take breaks from that magical work when I've accomplished a major milestone in it. And I want to keep in mind that I do long-term workings now. Pretty much that's all I do. I don't really do short-term, I need a result to solve a problem kind of approach to magic, which is what a lot of people out there do. Because because that's how it's typically framed. You read most books on magic, and what is it? It's get a spell to find a lover, get a spell to do X, get a spell to do X, Y, and Z. Whereas my approach is life design, magical life design. And that incidentally is something that if you're interested in, I do coach people on, and I'm more than happy to connect with you in that vein to show you how to design your life with magic and with other skills and practices. Because when you design your life that way, what you're doing is you're creating a long-term approach that actually helps you to manifest a much better life. And really, that's what I would want for any of you, is that you have the life that you really want to have, as opposed to just doing magic to solve problems. Anyone can do magic to solve problems, and hey, great. In the moment, there are needs for that. But there's also a need to do things for a long term. Now, if we're doing magic just to get a quick result, I would still say even then, let that result land. A mistake that I see, and it's a mistake I used to make, is I would do magical working, one after the other without making any time to integrate those workings into my life, without making any time to allow them to fully land. And part of it was that rush of doing magic. I felt really alive. I felt really empowered. I thought it was amazing to do magic all the time. But part of the problem was that I was getting really fixated on this idea that I needed to continually solve problems in my life, or I continually needed to apply magic as a way to resolve everything, and I really didn't. There were plenty of solutions out there. In fact, I would ultimately advise that if you're practicing magic, magic should be the last solution that you employ in your life when it comes to a situation. Magic should be something that you do for because you're like, okay, I've exhausted everything else, and I need something unusual to come in and fix this situation. Or because you're doing magic as a long-term result, or a long-term life design work, and what you're doing is you're gradually sculpting your life to become what you want it to become. That process, incidentally, does involve a paring away of things that don't work. The more you know yourself, the more you know you want what you want and what you don't want, the easier it is to create that life, because things come into focus more and more and more. I'm going to continue answering this question after a moment, but one thing I want to mention is that, brief break here, is that on January 20th, I am starting up the latest Magical Experiments 14-Day Challenge. This is 14 days, 14 exercises. And if you are kind of like, hey, I do want to start the new year out and I want to do some activity, well, I'm all for it. I will happily support you in that. Each day you'll get an exercise that only takes 5 to 10 minutes each day to do. And it's designed to stretch you, designed to help you get and achieve a specific goal in your life, designed to help you transform the way you show up in your life. So if you're like, hey, I want to do this, well, I've got the solution for you. January 20th, we're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to do 14 challenges or 14 exercises over 14 days designed to help you set the pace for 2025 to be an amazing year. And you can think of this as a form of magical life design, because a lot of this work is really going to be sculpted around picking out a specific result and then manifesting it. And it may seem odd that I mention this in the midst of a video about taking a break, but I think that it's important to take a break, and it's also important to know when to ramp up. So for some people, taking a 14-day challenge is a perfect way to ramp up and do something to challenge themselves and grow. And I want to help you grow in your magical practice. So if you check out the link below in the comments for the 14-day challenge, you can sign up there. And of course, there's also a sign up for my latest class, Advanced Spirit Communication, which is starting in February. Now, let's get back to the video. So when do we take a break, though? All right, let me give you an example. In September of 2024, I had left my day job, and after Labor Day weekend, I just slept most of the time then because I was really tired, exhausted from that job. That Tuesday, I drove out to the ocean. I picked the Tuesday purposely because I didn't want to deal with Labor Day traffic. And I got out there, and I found a spot where I could get in, where I could go to the dunes, and I pulled out. I brought with me a statue of Aphrodite, a statue of Eros, two arrows, a couple of other items, and it was on the new moon. And I decided to do a new moon ritual during the day. I mean, the moon is always up there regardless. And what I did is I called in the directions. I called in the archangels. I called in the sphere of space, the sphere of art. And I did my ritual to Eros and Aphrodite and the new moon and the sun. And I said, hey Eros, want to called Eros in, called Aphrodite, and they're like, what do you want? I'm like, okay, well, because I'm at this crossroads. I'm getting ready to start a graduate school program, all this other stuff. I'm at this crossroads, and I'm like, well, pull out the arrow, and I'm like, I want to continue my work with the magical community. I want to continue to serve the magical community in a powerful and meaningful way. Okay, great. And what else do you want? I want to do men's work. I want to do work to help men transform their lives, to help them be safer, because I see this work for myself, and I know the more I work on myself, the safer that I am, and the way that I show up in the environment around me. Okay, and they're like, all right, and I'm like, and I have an offering. Here's this ring from an ex that I don't want to keep this ring. She left it with me because she didn't want to have it because she'd gotten it because of a tattoo I had. Whatever. So I do the ritual. And they say to me, okay, if those are the things you want, then buckle up and get ready for an interesting ride. Your life's going to change. Okay. I go out to the ocean. I make the offering. I throw the ring into the ocean. There you go. It's going there. It's an offering to Aphrodite. It's an offering to Eros. It's an offering to the powers that be. Come back up, wrap up the ritual, release the energy. I didn't do any magical work from that time until Samhain, until the end of October. I didn't do magical work during the equinox. I was actually participating in a 4-day event where I was with both men and women up in Brinson, Washington at Convergence for Sacred Sons. And I was like, no, I don't need to do any magic. There's already a container here. The magic's already being worked through, and being part of this container is part of that magic. Within a few days of doing that ritual, I dropped out of graduate school. I had a realization after talking with a few different people that I did not want to spend 2 years of my life trying to go through a program, and then 4 years of jumping through hoops. I also didn't want to wait to be able to get employed because of the licensure demands. I was just like, I don't want to do this. This isn't how I want to show up. There are different skills that I have. I don't need to do this in order to get what I want. And I am so glad that I dropped out of that program. That wasn't for me. I had used it, and I had to come to grips with this. I'd used it as a reason to get out of being at the job I was in. Instead of just saying, I'm done, I quit, I'm leaving this job, which would have been really honest and in integrity, I didn't. Why did I do that? Because I needed to feel safe. I was afraid. I was letting my fear and anxiety control me. Doing that magical work called on me to sacrifice not just that ring, but also to sacrifice my fear and anxiety. To just let it go. To put it on the altar and say, here it is. Here's my fear and anxiety. I'm going to boldly go out there and do what I really want to do. I'm going to choose myself. I'm going to choose to pursue this life that I'm creating. And Eros and Aphrodite were right. It's been a wild and interesting ride. I mean, there have been times where I've definitely felt afraid, and every time I've offered that up. Every time I've done what I needed to do. So I took a break from doing any active magical work other than what I normally do every day, which is sphere of art. That's just calling the sphere in and creating the container. That's it. I call the sphere in every day. That's my daily spiritual work. But I called it in, and that's it. Meditate, do kung fu and all that other stuff, qigong. But those are the things that I do. I don't do everything else. I'm not doing active magical workings unless I'm doing work for clients. I mean, I was doing active magical working for clients, but that's a bit different. I'm doing that for them. I'm not doing it for me. So I go and I do this work, and then I turn my life around, start transforming it, start stepping into my power, and lo and behold, here I am. New world, new life. I'm letting go of what's holding me back. I'm choosing to embrace myself. And so I finally do a ritual working at Samhain. And for Samhain, I ended up working with Saturn. That felt really appropriate. Saturn it's the exalted season for Saturn, and it's the final harvest. And with Saturn, I go and I do my magical work. I've rested. I've allowed that magical working to integrate, and I've allowed it to go into my life and transform my life. Okay, so I go out there and I do my ritual to Saturn, and I call Saturn in and I say, I want to continue to work within, I want to let go of my boundaries and limitations. I want to continue growing here. Okay, we can do that. I do that work. And I do that work with the understanding that I'm only doing the Saturn work. I'm working with that Saturnic energy every day, but I'm only doing it from the Samhain and the new moon to the next new moon. In the course of that work, I end up essentially calling in my beloved that is in my life now. Didn't expect it. But this person was already in my life, but I wouldn't, if he had asked me that I was going to get involved with this person, I would have said no, not a chance, because long distance and all that other stuff, and I hadn't even thought about it. But things just came into alignment. There were certain things that came in, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's something I want to explore with this person. And wanting to explore basically, working with this person magically, and thinking, yeah, we're working at a distance, that'll be fine. Well, what ended up happening? I ended up working with that person magically, and then within a week, we're like, yeah, we want to see what else we could explore here. So there you go. And that was part of the Saturnic working, very much so. I wasn't calling in a specific person. I was just calling in what I was looking for, which was also really to kind of help me break free of my own limits and boundaries. And Saturn obliged me in more ways than one. Wrap that working up at the end of at the beginning of December, and I haven't done a major magical working since then. I know when I'll do another major magical working. I'll probably do some magical work when I visit my beloved, more than likely. In fact, we're kind of gearing up for that. By the time you watch this video, I'll be visiting her. But beyond that, I'm just letting go. I'm just trusting the circumstances. And I may do some major magical working. I set my theme of the year. We'll put it that way. That's a major magical working. I set my theme of the year. It's leadership. That's going to be working its way through things. But again, I'm not going and doing major magical work every day. I'm not even doing minor magical work. I'm doing my daily work, but that daily work is more about tuning in and aligning with the overall work and keeping myself receptive and attuned. So this is where I think it's so important to find that balance in terms of when you set a break. If you think you have to do magical work all the time, examine that. Why do you think that? What is it that you think it's going to do for you? Because a lot of times when we think we have to do something like that all the time, what we're doing is we're really setting ourselves up for not fully integrating in and being present with what we want to change and transform in our lives. So I would invite you to really look at that and examine it from that perspective. knowing when to take a break is really about knowing when to integrate everything fully into your life so that you can fully be present with what you want to manifest and actually allow it to come through. And that is one of the most powerful bits of advice that I can give you as a magician and occultist. You don't have to do magic all the time. You want to be magic. Being magic means you work your ritual, you work your magic, and then you release it and embody it within your body and with the world around you, aligning yourself to that new reality, and you grow into the result that you're manifesting. And that only happens when you give it some space and time for it to happen. Now, I have a resource for you that might be helpful, and that's my book, Inner Alchemy of Wintering. If you haven't read this book, this is a book that is all about knowing when to take a break from magical practice. It does talk about how to recover from spiritual burnout and creative burnout, but it also is really about tuning into and checking in with your spiritual practice, knowing when to let go so that you can fully experience and rest in the work that you're doing. So if you want to check that out, go to the Magical Experiments site and go to the Inner Alchemy series under books, and you'll find the book there. You can order it from me directly. You can get it as an audiobook, an ebook, or a print copy. Go and get it and get reading. All right, thank you and have a great day.